Like I saw signs of this happening. There was issues with team members. There was things that were happening that if I would have just stepped back for a moment, got present, got out of the stress and the chaos of everything, I would have been able to see it and I would have been able to make a better decision.
Hey everyone, welcome to our new and improved podcast. We just shifted our podcast to now being focused much more on gym and the leadership type roles. This is called Gym Break now, and Gym Break is all about those entrepreneurs and leaders in the gym space that are really utilizing, athletic type situations to really get their juices flowing and build that creativity and the visionary side. And so I'd love to introduce our real first guest to our new and improved podcast, Jason. Jason, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, well, first of all, what an honor to be the first guest on a new and improved podcast. So I'm honored to be here. Yeah, my name is Jason Meland, and I am the founder of the In Demand Coach and the host of the School of Impact podcast. That is who I am. I am a man on a mission to help change a lot of lives, and I'm happy to kind of unpack anything that would be helpful.
Well, beautiful. Why don't you tell everyone a little bit about your story, how you started back in the day, how long you owned a gym. I know you grew it quite effectively and successfully, and then you sold off and you started something else. And so why don't you tell everyone about that?
So it was November 28th, 2009, when I really made the decision to make fitness a priority. And it happened after I was a firefighter, and I had become pretty overweight, about 53 pounds overweight. Wasn't really taking care of my body, but yet I was still doing laborious activities where I was having to go into house fires. And on November 28th, I was actually electrocuted in a house fire, and I was hospitalized for, we were doing a search and rescue, and just hit a live wire while in the house. And it was like that moment where I remember the doctor in the hospital was like, son, I was in my low 20s at the time. He's like, you're way too young to be this out of shape. And he was like, you're lucky you're alive. And so I took it as a second chance. And that really propelled me to start getting healthy and fit again. And I did. And then I started getting my shift mates in the fire station in shape. I was like, I really freaking like this, right? And so I left the fire department. Long story short, I left the fire department and I started working as a trainer. I was like, right, it's big shift, right? Firefighter. I was like, I'm a trainer now. And I started working as a trainer in the big box gyms. And I quickly realized man, I like this, but there's no way I can make a career from a big box gym. I was getting paid $6 a session. I was having to work from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. at night just to be able to, make a decent living. And that's when I started to run boot camps. I started to run boot camps in local parks. I started to do in-person training, or in-home training rather. And one thing led to another, and I built up a little bit of a name for myself in my local community in South Florida, and ended up starting a fitness center. It was a unique fitness center in Florida. We had actually taken an old hockey rink and we redid everything. We put turf in there, and we pretty much made South Florida's only outdoor gym. It's a full outdoor gym. We had barbells, dumbbells, pull-up bars. We had a full Ninja Warrior setup out there. It was a full outdoor gym. Very unique model. And we ended up growing that over the course of a handful of years to around a 300 person client base at one point. And over the handful of years, we served a little over 3,500 people between front end offers, challenges, and our membership. It wasn't a smooth journey, not in the least bit. There was a lot of bumps and bruises along the way. We had a full team, and we actually ended up franchising. We had an investor come in, and I could share bits and pieces of what I learned, that process of coming up with systems and SOPs and really having to step into a leadership position.
Yeah, one thing that I take away from that right off the bat is that you found the importance of building that experience quite early for your members. Can you tell me a little bit about how you feel the impact of actually buying this hockey rink and trying to create an experience for your members affected, you could say top line or bottom line, but in general affected the quality of your members, quality of your overall price points and offers and things of that nature?
Yeah, absolutely. We were at this point because we had grown the boot camp before we made it. We actually turned it into a gym. We had grown the boot camp in local parks, and we were at this point of should we go buy it? Just like everybody's doing, right? Go get a spot in a retail shopping center. We get a warehouse, and we surveyed. This is probably a really good lesson. It was for me at the time, and it took me a long time to learn it. But we surveyed people, and they're like, dude, we really like this outdoor scene. But I was like, all right, I got to make it more official. I've got to have a setup. Like, we can't just like be going to parks all day. And so that was the first step, is like, my people told me they wanted something outdoors. There's nothing like that down there, at least at the time. I don't know if there's now. And from there, we started to really build out what they wanted. So every step of the way, I had initially around 30 to 50 pretty loyal people that would follow me around the parks. They were like, hey, we like to do strength training. We want, and I was like, cool, that's what I'm going to give you. And they were like, we'd like to, like fast-paced stuff. And they would tell me. And so I started to build this experience around them. I started to figure out like what it is that like would drive them to come and show up. I had to figure out like, okay, I need to get, it's Florida. I need to get fans out there. And so we had like massive fans that we invested into. And so I think a lot of it was just me slowly, one by one, figuring out what do customers want and then building that experience around them.
Yeah. So do you feel like there was more impact? Because you're right. I think that, I see a lot of gym owners really not focusing on that experience as a KPI metric. And so it's one of those situations where, because it is hard, right? It's hard to be able to find a number associated with a brand or an experience that's provided to the customer. Did you have any sort of numbers that you were able to look at, that you were able to say, hey, we can see that the experience that we're providing helped you either raise prices or be able to effectively show an increase in your profits?
Kind of, yeah. So there was like more of not KPIs, but there were certain things that I made sure that I don't know, it's hard, you can't quantify this, right?
Yes.
But it was trained they have to say everybody's name at least 3 times as they come into the center. They have to always greet people by like personal touch, eye contact. This is like foundational stuff that like, it was little nuanced things, but it helps to add to the experience. From like a KPI standpoint, what I used to look at a lot was referrals. Obviously, if people are happy with the business, they're going to refer. And so I always look at what's that, like the NPS score, what's the net promoter score of the business? Are they sending referrals without being asked? Then obviously we have a referral campaign. And I knew instantly, right? So if I ran a referral campaign where I was like, hey, give some incentives for them to do it. I had, customers out there that were referring 8 of their friends.
Yeah.
Right. And so we would grow like wildfire because of that. And then also just retention, right? And like building up our monthly recurring revenue. I knew that like if our MRR was going down and like we're churning clients, like members, I knew that was a direct reflection of the experience that was happening. Because as I started hiring staff, when it was just me, everybody freaking loved it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You go through the journey of making your first hires, and like I certainly wasn't a great leader at all. And so I would hire somebody and I would not train them up properly because I just didn't know. I was ignorant. I just didn't know how. I just kind of was doing things on the fly as I was coming. We were growing so quickly. And so you would have staff members out there, and then I would start to see like referrals would drop. We would start to churn more members. And I was like, crap, I got to go and train the staff member on the experience because that's what's driving growth.
That's quite interesting. When did you finally sell your gym off? What was around the time frame?
It was the worst time frame. So 2019, I had launched an online product. We were in the works. We had a handful of people that were interested in selling. And I'll give some context to this because we actually had an investor come in and we franchised our model. Oh, it failed miserably, but I'll go back to that. 2019 is when we had a bunch of people coming in to buy the model, the main model, and then COVID happened. Everybody pulled out. And so let's just say I fire sailed it. I made pretty much nothing.
Oh man, that sucks, man. It's hard too because I feel like you were ahead of your time, so to say, because I feel like now that we're past that era, I feel like brick and mortar establishments, it's the experience more so than anything that people really have to thrive to go to and build that community around them. And it's those experiences. I mean, there's even stores in retail, like in our area, you're seeing like in shopping malls, these large stores now, sporting goods stores that are, I think it's called Shields. Oh, we went there with the family. It was like a 6-hour event. They have restaurants in there. They have everything you can buy. They want you to stay there longer so that you buy more, and they're able to up their prices because of the experience. But no one wants to just go to a normal gym anymore. They don't want to go to a normal retail store anymore. If they're going to leave, they can get that off online. And so if they're going to go somewhere, they want to have an experience. And I think that what you were providing with what you did was so ahead of its time. I think overall that good, because that showed the success of what you did with your members. During that time, how heavily did you invest in, let's say, online digital marketing as part of your marketing campaigns?
Pretty heavily. So our main marketing at the time was Facebook ads. Like we were running ads to a 21-day challenge. It was like a 21-day. I can't remember brand the names of these things so many times. So I don't know. I can't remember the one that was like the biggest one, but it was a 21-day challenge we ran, and that crushed. Like it crushed. Literally, I ran that. I don't even know if you can get away with this anymore, but I ran the same ad, literally same ad, creative, everything for about a year straight. And it just was pumping in. It was just pumping in leads, and we were just dialing, getting them into the process. It was crazy. So we invested a lot into that. We invested a lot into building relationships in the community. I was an ambassador in the Chamber of Commerce where I lived locally. I was out speaking at events all the time. And between Facebook ads and just me being super present in the community, like people just knew me. Like,
yeah,
they knew my brand wherever I went.
And I think that's the key there, is that you combined it. You didn't go off the wall. I mean, I think there was probably a time you were at that beginning stage where you were in your own validation mode, and then you kind of found things that worked, and then you were like, all right, these are the things that work together. And the reason I asked the time was because I know within, the marketing world, there's just so much stuff out there now. There's just so many things, and you're right. You probably can't do that on Facebook. You can't do that on Facebook ads anymore. In fact, it's the combination of, and that's why I really pushed up front you talking about your clients, because I think that, building that sense of community with a sense of, and that's what social media should be, right? That's what it was made for. And so building that sense in reviews, I think that reviews were probably your biggest metric for advocacy to help bring more people in, right? And so
we built up our SEO.
Yeah,
built up the Google reviews. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is probably right now what I tell most gym owners, like that is your biggest bang for your buck, is, hey, like, because there is so much that you can do right now that, like you said, you'd get one client that would bring in 8 people. Do you feel like the people that brought people in from an advocacy standpoint did you have any sort of metrics on, hey, the people that were doing Facebook ads compared to the people that were doing coming in through other people, like your close rates or anything along those natures that could diagnose the difference in retention?
Referrals were always definitely higher close for sure, because they were already pre-sold on the brand. They just had to like the experience. And some people didn't. Some people hated the outdoor experience, right? It's just like if somebody goes into an Orange Theory, they might hate that experience. And so that's just like, you can't change that. Everybody's going to have their different taste, but for sure, a higher close. It was very close. It's been years. It's been a handful of years now. It was 2020. So I don't remember the exact metrics, but I do know when we marketed wherever we marketed, people knew what they were coming into because it was the uniqueness. We were the only outdoor gym at the time. So a lot of people were curious. Honestly, they would we would just have people come by and just like, look, it's like, is this like the freak show? Like, what's happening out here? And because it was just like, they wasn't seen. You go to a CrossFit, like a warehouse, you go to like a boutique gym, you go to a big box gym, but there was just like this gym, and they were like, what is this? We would tend to at least convert people into like a front end offer at a really high percentage, no matter where they came from. But when it came to ongoing membership, like reoccurring, like we had about, if I remember correctly, and don't hold me to this, I could be off, but I want to say it was like a 70% conversion off of across the board.
Across the board.
It was definitely, so whether somebody came in from an ad to a front end offer, we would convert about 70% of them into at least we'd have them for 3 months ongoing. And then we had, I would say, about 30 to 40% of our whole membership base was like, they were in.
Yeah.
They were in for at least a year.
Yeah, and I think that goes to show you the fact of loyalty and advocacy. Just from statistics point of view, and not to get off subject, but as you know, like you said, you build customers through advocacy and through experience. They are more likely to stay more because they build more trust up front. You already have that trust factor. They already get a feel for the place. But one thing that you kind of said there that it really hit me was the differentiation part, because you talked about, hey, we were really different. We did our surveys. We did this. that is brand strategy at its finest right there. And I don't even know if you probably knew that's what you were doing when you were doing that, but you differentiated yourself. So those people that did come and they weren't fit for the outdoors, you just probably knew at that point, well, they're just not our customer base. They're just not who we're.
I tried though with everybody. I don't think I understood that to that extent at that point. I know it sounds naive, but I was super like into the brand and the mission, and I was just like, I did not understand. I was like, no, just try it out. They're like, no, literally, I don't want to be out here. And I was just like, no, you got to try it, right? But I did, like, for whatever reason, I don't know where this came from or why this happened. Maybe because, like, I think most of us, if we're entrepreneurial, you are the black sheep of your family most of the time. And so maybe I don't know if that was it, but I've always wanted, even today, I like my brands to be different. I don't ever like to have the same as anybody. So if people are bobbing, I'm weaving, right? I'm going the opposite direction. I don't know exactly why I do that. So from the get-go, I'm like, no, if everybody's doing this, I'm going to create something different. If everybody has a 35-minute or 30-minute workout right now, mine's 45. Oh, you're doing 45? Mine's 40. Right? It's like, I always want to have it a little different. So it just creates that. One thing that also was really helpful during these times was we would hold like monthly workshops for our members. We would hold charity events, usually once a quarter. And then we would have like we would just invite the community to come out and participate. We really focus on that sense of community, like doing mud runs together, 5Ks together. And I felt like, and I'm sure for most gym owners, we're like, yeah, duh. But like, I think a lot of times people lose sight of community while they're growing, especially once you get over that, like, 250 hump and you're like really moving forward. At least for me, I kind of got lost for a little bit. Then I had to go back to the roots of like the foundational things, right, that actually matter and move the needle truly.
That's interesting that you say that, because I think that happens not just in the gym space, but I think that happens to everyone. I mean, it happened to me too. I think that you get losing your own values. You start to lose your own values, not on purpose. It just kind of happens. Yeah. And then you have to you realize that that's actually going to affect you to lose your value. I mean, I've talked to plenty of gym owners that just never realize they never realize that. And so I think it's great that you saw that recalibration in yourself, like, hey, I can't lose myself. I can't lose the mission or the vision, because it's really easy, especially in today's day and age. And there's these large, and I don't know if you used any of these, but there's those large CRMs for gyms now, these large agencies that will say, hey, we'll do this, we'll do that for you. And you get caught up in, because there's so many digital marketing aspects out there, you just get caught up in those numbers. And the numbers are important, of course, but then you lose sight of why you're really doing this. So it actually becomes your downfall, at the end of the day. And I see that loss of values. And so, like you said, I see it, the correlation, especially for gyms, it's usually around that validation stage. It's usually like, hey, we're at the 250, 250 is common for validation stage, they say, so I usually use that number. But, it's about the time that you've validated, you've brought in a whole bunch of members, or you've brought in a whole bunch of clients, you keep thinking that the same things are going to work. Like, okay, let's just keep spraying the wall and bring more people in. You lose that sense of community, right? How did you kind of gain that back? How did you start to be able to look at yourself and go, okay, now this isn't working anymore. We need to bring back the things that...
It took a big crash, man. Big crash. So I think it was like 2000 we started in 2013. Things started to really take off in 2015. We had about 100 members or so, like between 2013 to 2015. It was good. And then we took off like 2015 for sure. End of 2016. One of my members, her husband was like, hey, I really see this. This is like a big concept. I think we can branch out. Or he used to hear me talk about expansion. And he was like, I would love to invest in helping you franchise this thing. We can bring these around Florida, California, all like the towns where people love to be outside. And I was like, I agree, 100%. We could even go indoors. We could do, and then it got crazy, and we ended up putting combined total of 80,000 into franchising, getting everything up to par. Marketing, we hired a franchising agency to help us, and it was during that time where I was out like Ray Kroc. I was out there like selling, trying to sell franchises, and I was getting the marketing was going good. I was getting meetings. But it was just hard. It was getting harder and harder to sell. I had some interest, and then it was during that time where what I had thought was like really solid systems in place. Literally, like I even hired this agency to help me build the systems. It wasn't, and I didn't have the right team. I had a good team, the right team for what I was trying to do. And so like things started to crumble a little bit. Fire after fire started popping up. It was during that phase where I literally like lost everything, like money wise. Like I was a 45K in debt pretty much between loans, credit cards, like all kinds of things. And it was like, all right. And I just, but at that time, my firstborn daughter, she was just born. And I was just like, all right, got no money. I'm in debt. Got a child. It was like the combination of those things that was like, all right, let's kill the franchise for now. Let's focus on kind of like just getting back to the fundamentals, the roots of what makes this work. It was during that time where I had let go of a couple of staff members. I was out there all of the time, building it back up, making sure that the right systems were in place. I thought I did it right the first time. I'm happy to go into like some of the mistakes I made, but I did it right. And if it wasn't for COVID, I think it's a blessing in disguise, but we would have sold that thing for a good amount of money because it was pumping out cash flow right before COVID. Like it was freaking rocking.
And not everyone has kids. And so I won't go too deep into this because they don't have the blessing that you and I had during that time. I mean, you had something else. You had the debt that kind of put into that. But do you feel like your definition of success kind of changed? Do you feel like that was part of your hurdle? Like you were like, oh, we want to grow this, we want to push this. And at the end of the day, you were really kind of looking at top line revenue more so than, hey, what makes me personally happy in this perspective?
A little bit. And I was also so caught up in the vision, right, that I forgot about stability. And so like I knew the risk that I was up against, but I was so deeply ingrained in the vision that I couldn't see the writing on the wall. And so I'd say, yes, values definitely shifted a bit into like, all right, I want to be a dad that's home with my kids, and I don't want to be working the gym all of the time and all this stuff. And that definitely played into it. But I also think that like I made a really unstable move during that time, and the writing was on the wall. Like I saw signs of this happening. There was issues with team members. There was things that were happening that if I would have just stepped back for a moment, got present, got out of the stress and the chaos of everything, I would have been able to see it, and I would have been able to make a better decision.
Yeah. Yeah. There's always different things that happen. And I kind of think that kind of stuff has to happen to everyone in business in some form or another, to kind of see that. And the ones that it doesn't happen to, God bless their souls, you think they're lucky. But I mean, I've heard of organizations, not just gyms, make it to 8, 9, 10, 11 million, even 20 million a year. And they kind of have that burnout phase then. And I feel like it's harder for them. It's like, well, now you have a $20 million business, not a $500,000 $1 million business going on here, you know? And so I actually feel blessed myself that like I saw it myself so early on that I was able to catch it for that stability. And I think stability is a huge key there, because I think it's funny. I was talking to my wife about this the other day, and she's like, stability means you're staying stagnant. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. You know, stability really just means that you're growing healthy and you're making conscious decisions of risk, not looking at, hey, I want to go to 5 million to, I mean, 500 or 1 million to 10 million in a year. I'm going, hey, I want to take I'm not going to say slow road, but the smart road of making sure I'm being smart about my decisions before I move on to that next stage.
Yeah, and I think that's a challenge for a lot of visionary entrepreneurs, that like, you know, you can get so bought into the vision that you're blind to everything else. Like you see and hear things, but literally you don't. Like they're there, but it's like your conscious mind or your ego perhaps is like, nope, out. And that's where it's like, and that to me has been like, as I've been in the game now for 11 years in this arena of entrepreneurship. And that's one of the things that I feel like has, with maturity in being an entrepreneur, a business owner, that's one of the biggest lessons is like, before you make a big decision in anything, right? There's like the whole adage with a team member, it's like hire fast, they say, right? Hire slow, fire fast, right? Where I'm like, all right, make decisions slow. Like move fast, like be decisive, and you know, done is better than perfect. I'm all about that. But when it comes to like a big decision of like, here's 80K, just do that slow. Like really think through the process, get yourself present, get advisors around you, people that aren't attached to it to be able to like talk you through that stuff.
Yeah, I think it's funny because I've noticed, funny enough, the exact opposite. I've noticed that a lot of people like come in for our services, for instance. I mean, we're not cheap. We're not expensive either. We're not the top of the line, but we're not the bottom. We have this nice middle ground, and I base a lot of our services based off of the common marketing percentage you should be, doing with a gym. And so I try to keep it pretty much equal for most gym owners, but they'll come in and they'll be like, hey, we're, looking to do this. And they're like, but they'll take forever to make a decision or just to give us a clear yes or no. It's like, just give us a yes or no. Like, I want to work with you, but you need to be decisive here. Like, it's okay. You can tell us no, but then they'll come out and they'll be like, oh, what you said, they'll be like, we just spent 80 grand on this. And I'm like, are you sure that was a good idea right now? But I want to hear a little bit about your transition to your online, because it is a different perspective. I mean, we do have clients that still come in and they want to build a personal brand and they want to do things more virtual, especially within the gym space, because we work with personal brands on our larger agency level when we're kind of going through and building those brand identities and that type of stuff and the why. But we've tended to see that most think the grass is greener on the other side. Oh, I'm all online.
It's all hard.
Yeah. So I want to kind of hear about your experience, and I want to, take a step back and probably hear some of those pain points you had as a gym owner as you're going through that transition, and maybe how some of those correlate to some of the pain points that you have now as a virtual business.
So the first major lesson that I learned here is and this reverts back to one of the first things I said on the podcast today. Ask your customers what they want before you do freaking anything. Mm-hmm. So, and then really think through what's the goal. Like, are you trying to add a revenue stream? Are you trying to completely switch over to the other side? Or what are you trying to do? Are you trying to provide better results for your clients, for your current members? For me, I paid one of my trainers, and I spent about 6 months building a follow-along workout program that I was gonna launch to my client base, because we had a few hundred people, and I was gonna launch it online too. And I get all of this done. Lots of time, sweat, frustration. I mean, it was a really good product, man. Nobody wanted it. They were like, yeah. And I was like, oh, so what do you guys want? They were like, just more accountability. I'm like, so how would you like that? Just a Zoom session? Can you just do a Zoom session? This is 2019, mind you. This is like before COVID.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think I could do a Zoom session. Yeah. I was like, all right. So my first venture into online was like not good. I was like, I'm going to sell this follow-on workout program. And I had to kill that too. And then so what I did is I ended up just creating like a Zoom session group for my clients. And I think I used Trainerize at the beginning. And it was just for my members. I wasn't selling this off to anybody else. And I would give them some workouts they could do outside of the gym. So if they wanted to go to another like an in-person gym or whatever they wanted to do, they could do that outside. And then we would meet on a Zoom session and talk through it. And then the transition, I was kind of forced into it because COVID. Mm-hmm. We were trying to sell the gym during this time, and I had a bunch of buyers. So like the whole plan for me was to get rid of the gym, to sell the gym, and to go fully online. That was what my goal was at the time. And we were going to move, right? I was down in South Florida. We were moving to West Florida for about 4.5 hours apart. Like, I'm not driving 4.5 hours.
Yeah.
Right. So I was going to sell the gym. This is our whole plan. And so when COVID came, people were looking for what to do. So my gym, we provided like Zoom workouts for them, and I had my trainers doing that. And then when I decided, I didn't close it. I pretty much like did a rent to own with one of my trainers on it. And he kept it alive for about 2.5 years. And then he shut it down just about 1.5 years ago. But anyways, not to get off topic. So I launched into the online space. I was able to generate like 11,500, mainly just because I had built all the skills from the gym, and I already like, you know what I mean? Like I already knew how to market and how to sell and how to get attention and stuff. And I had people that trusted me. Like I had built up relationships and stuff. So people trusted me. It was really easy. So one of the benefits was like higher profit margins because it was like me and I was like software. Some of the pain points were it's just different, right? I think it might be a little bit different now, but then like getting people to freaking sign into an app and like you gotta like almost change the behavior.
Yeah.
Right? Like people are used to logging into like Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever, right? You got to get them to log into an app or whatever your process is. That was my process. And showing up to Zoom sessions, like trying to keep people accountable, like right? Because it's like you don't see them in person. So you're like, hey, can you send me a picture of you? So like, because I was in weight loss. I was mainly helping people with weight loss. Can you send me a picture of you so I can like see if there's a change? Can you update your weight? And people were like, I can't really help you if you don't do this. There was a lot of like pain points and challenges with like, I felt like it took a whole new set of skill sets with building the customer experience online. And it was much harder to get people bought into not bought into like online coaching, but to get to like actually do their thing. Like to go to a gym, people can just show up. You just put on your freaking shoes and just show up. And once they're there, you can help coach them, help train them, right? Online, they have to show up. So you have to empower them. So it took all these new skill sets. I was just like that motivator. I would motivate my team. I would motivate my clients. I was just like a dancing monkey, you know? And then I had to like now change into like, now I got to really learn how to influence. I got to become a better leader, a better influencer. I got to become not like an influencer, like an Instagram influencer, but like I got to influence people's decisions better, their behaviors. And that to me was like a massive like hurdle at the beginning for me because I lacked depth in that set of skills.
So that makes total sense. I mean, I funny enough, you said, I think then people act like this. I think honestly, it's still the same now. I mean, it depends on your market, of course, but you know, my dad's 65 and he was just telling me how he's buying these things for one of his animals and all the things are requiring him to do Bluetooth setup. And he's like, I just threw them out because I couldn't even Bluetooth setup on them. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, there are kind of a little too many apps out there, like for things that don't need apps, you know, but that accountability, that is a hard one. I mean, I took a course right when I had my kid, funny enough, when I couldn't go to the gym, I did an online one. I was already pretty fit. I was already pretty accountable with going to the gym, and you know, I was running keto off the whole year until I had my kid, and so I was pretty fit at the time. But damn this, I couldn't even hold myself accountable. It was hard for those online apps. So what kind of things did you put into place for yourself and for the team to start being able to hold that accountability a lot better?
Community was a big one, just like in person, right? Community was huge. So I started a Facebook group. That's where people are. Even today, like there's like school now, but like school communities are really tough. I think there are a lot of potential there, but people are addicted to Facebook.
Yeah.
Right. And so I just started a community on Facebook because I already knew people were logging in there. And so I just told them, hey, just spend time here when you're on Facebook. And so that was helpful. I had a group sessions to where I would encourage people to come. We'd have like automation set up in place to just remind people to show up to the group sessions. Like I didn't do group workouts. It was like just group like talks, conversation. And that's really what they liked. That was helpful. And then we engineered the client experience, right? So we really focused on like templatizing everything that we did. We would create like little mini videos along the way to kind of like infuse different things that I wanted them to go through from like a psychological and emotional standpoint. So this is where I had to learn skills, right? I would have to create these videos. So I had like welcome videos. They would, as soon as they logged into Trainer Eyes, I had them in there. I would have videos along the way that would automatically go and they would get pinned. And I noticed people would watch those videos. They're really short. And I would open loop stuff. I would open loop things to try to get people to continue to come back in. So I'd be like, hey, so next week we're going to be shifting up the workouts a little bit. We're going to be adding this over here. And I've got something really cool. So I would like start open looping. And I noticed that we get more people to log in. And then we would have like little challenges and we would give away little gifts. Then when we did build a course, we would unlock certain modules for them. You know, we would help them create a custom meal plan if they got to a certain spot. So we would have to create these little like almost we'd be like pretty much baiting them make better decisions for their lives.
So it was like little value tips in a way. It was like you bring value and helping them, but you would do it in little touch point areas.
That certainly helped a lot.
So what do you feel like but let's just go overall perspective of compared to the brick and mortar versus the online, what tends to be different about your finance percentages? Like if you're okay talking about that, like do you feel like you had to put more focus on, let's say, hiring versus hiring in your amount of budget that goes to employment compared to the amount of budget that goes to like marketing, for instance? Since you no longer had this huge investment over your head of a location, how did that allocation switch?
Yeah, so it was quite a big difference. And so, there's different phases, right? And I think this is going to depend on people's skill sets. Like for me, I love marketing. I'm a marketer. Like it's just like what I teach people now too. It's like, so that was like a skill set for me. Not everybody has that. So for me, I just did all of my time went to marketing and to sales. and to building fulfillment. So for me, like once I built it up, I hired an assistant coach that she's still my assistant to this day. She's been with me for like 8 years since my gym. I had people like hire, setting appointments for me online. I would hire some agencies here and there, but all in all, the cost was really low for staff compared to the gym. That was a big shift. As I was paying people to be there per hour. I was paying in online. It was just so much easier. I just had to pay them to come check in and maybe host a coaching call here and there, do some admin work. So it was much less hours that were required. And then from an advertising standpoint, I did do Facebook ads for quite a while, but I would say for the majority of my time, at least earlier on, I didn't. Like everything was just content. I just did content, and that's what worked. But you end up spending a lot more time, especially at the beginning when somebody doesn't have skills, or if they have skills, they just don't have skills for this. It's like they're spending a lot of time on their computer. So instead of being at the gym, you're now just on your computer for more time. Yeah. Right. So it's like, and then you have to pay to go to like the chiropractor and massages. So that's in your budget for sitting so much. But I would say at the beginning, from a cost perspective, I mean, we still to this day are running really good profit margins, but it's like a massive difference. I watch a lot of people jump into the online space and they end up with like 20 or 30% profit margins. And I'm like, how? But they end up hiring too many people too fast. They hire, like you said, like the big agencies that are like crazy expensive but don't deliver results. They're like they're blowing money on ads and they don't really have their brand, their uniqueness or anything dialed in, right? And so I see that happen a lot with people. But
it's a funny thing because I think that here's the thing. I don't think it's funny when people talk about, especially in my industry, when people talk about, hey, hire a niched agency. Yes, we have Gymmark now. I still have Creative up here, which is much more broad and customizable. But they always say, hey, if you're a marketing agency, niche towards a certain demographic or a certain thing. And I'm like, they always say riches are in the niches, right? And I'm like, I 100% disagree with that. I'm like, I feel that niching, especially too soon, can cause what you said. It could cause people not to do certain things correctly, or they don't have, I think the beauty with niching is momentum building, right? And I think you had a clear show of that, of your niche. You were really big in the fitness. You had this gym. And even when you sold the gym, yes, a lot of those clients stayed in-house, but you said like you kept your admin, you still had internal branding practices and branding things that when you shifted over in knowledge that you were able to transition over to. And I think that's really what niching is, right? It's being able to find a certain type of person that you want to work with. Services, on the other hand, yeah, you can niche towards a service, but then you do come into a prospect where you're, dealing with like, hey, you have a social media agency, but they're not going to care.
Yeah.
You have your demo down.
And that is a big lesson that I just realized right there is, so in the gym, we were kind of niche, but also like people just wanted to have fun and get fit. Like that was their thing there, right? It is an outdoor experience. It's like, so it wasn't like, hey, lose 20 pounds in 6 weeks type deal, right? It wasn't like that. And so we had people that they just wanted a good outdoor workout. We had some people want to lose weight. We had some people want to build muscle. So it was a bit more general. And when I went online, everybody was telling me to niche too. And I was just like, I don't know, I'm going to serve men and women that just want to lose weight. And that's what I did at the beginning. And I do think that helped a lot, right? Because if I was to go in and be like, I only serve women that want to lose 20 pounds. And like, I don't think I would have had as much success early on in the online business versus niched, right? I went weight loss. And then once I was along the way and I had some revenue coming in, like we were doing 6 figures, and I was like, all right, now let me niche down to like helping people with belly fat. And then I started to build my brand around like helping people lose belly fat.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that still, I mean, there's probably nothing wrong with you every once in a while bringing on a person that's like, oh, I want to work on belly fat, but I want to work on this too. And you probably say, hey, just let you know, like, this is what we're working on. But if you still feel comfortable doing this, and like, let's do it. And so, well, we're getting close to the end. We're getting close here to the end. Thanks again for being on. I really do appreciate you being part of the first Gym Break podcast. I think that you gave a lot of helpful information for a lot of those gym owners out there, / personal brands that are looking to build in the training space. And so with that said, why don't you tell everyone where they can find you and where they can grab some of your information from?
Yeah, so we're really putting attention now into YouTube. So if you like watching videos, you just go to my name, Jason Meland, and you'll find me there. And then if you're listening to this podcast and you like podcasts, you can, in fact, which your episode will be coming out next week, by the way.
Oh, beautiful.
The School of Impact podcast, and the first episode you can listen to is the one with Zach and I over there, and that could be found on pretty much anywhere that podcast exists.
All right, cool. Well, I'll put those links down in the below. Send me your YouTube channel as well, because we'll add it inside because we do mostly video podcasts ourselves. So we'll add it in our YouTube channel, and so anyone that comes to our channel that may want to get into what you're doing can head over there.
Sweet.
All right, beautiful. Well, again, thanks everyone for jumping on the first episode of our rebrand, the Gym Break podcast. Again, I think we talked a lot today about sustainability, and right now we're running a private podcast to help gym owners that are kind of at that space in that transition where they want to start building a sustainable lead flow. Head over to leavethatmark.com, watch that podcast. You can do it during your workout leisure, or you can do it during your way to the office, your way to your workout, whatever you like to do. And so again, head over to Leave That Mark and you can learn how to build a sustainable lead flow in just 5 minutes a day. Again, I'm Zach with Gym Break. See y'all later.